Spook.
Are you recording?
Yeah. Do something funny, like you did before the grand final. Oh, Rant.
It was like a Muppet.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm fuck Carlton. Ha ha ha. Spook.
Spook.
What?
Had a disappointing loss against GWS where we were deemed too old and too slow.
Well, it's round zero. It doesn't count.
Is Carlton too
Do
old?
you remember when you were a kid and you got those fold out, I was going to say napkins, those fold out fixtures? Do you remember ever seeing round zero back then?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was it called the Escort Cup?
Yeah. Is Carlton too old and too slow?
No, they're just too shit.
Is Port Adelaide too old and too slow?
Well, we'll find out about that. I don't know about that one.
No.
I'd like to think that they're potential premiership threats, and we're just that fucking good.
With Carlton's loss,
Do you want to insert some canned laughter every time we say
no, it's too much
Carlton?
work.
Oh.
I mean, we know this about the media, but the fucking way they just teed off against Carlton, I mean, and deservedly so, but it went from Collingwood being too old and too slow. Now Collingwood's fine. Now Carlton's too old and too slow. It's like, just from fucking moment to moment, clickbait journalism, fucking love Tom Morris and Sam McClure on Footy Class. Anytime they're challenged, they just both fucking get really indignant, especially McClure. And Kane Corns has just become a bigger dick.
I was listening to Swanee's podcast the other day, and he said he had some idea for something he was going to do and watch every football show and rate them in order of shitness to least shit. And then he realised there's about 18 of them, and it was like, fuck that. It's getting absurd just how many there are.
Yeah, well, Channel 7
we should probably pull the pin on this thing because we're just adding to the problem, aren't we?
No. We made the newspaper. We're famous.
Out of tree bark.
Yeah. No, it's. I think it's common commentary on journalism in football now, how just fucking sensationalistic it's become.
Well, I think the only time that they actually report on games is post the match. And then after that, it's just all fucking gutter journalism, speculation. This person should go here. This person should be shot, and then you just rinse repeat every fucking week. We've mentioned this before.
How much do you think they make it up?
I think a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, because
the thing is, you're either right, you're wrong, but no one fucking holds them accountable. So you just keep powering through each
But
week.
rarely do the clubs actually come out and refute anything, because that's just going to be engagement. You know, for day one that don't want, because they're focusing on other things. So, generally the journalists are just free to say whatever the fuck they want. And they're not going to get pushed back. Like, it was funny, like, when the Caroline Wilson kept saying, oh, Damien Hardwick's going to go to Gold Coast. And then people were saying, oh, no, she got this one right. She made about 700 predictions. You remember this one because she got this one right. Do you know that phenomenon, like, when you think about someone then and they ring you right at that moment? I was listening to this neurosurgeon speak, and he was going, the thing is, you have that thought a lot of times, but it never happens. So you don't remember it. Your brain just dismisses it as useless data. But when it does happen, you remember it because it seems special. And that's like what fucking football journalism is. It's every now and again they might get one right. And it's like, okay, they know something. And people just dismiss the 9,000 things they said prior that were fucking totally wrong.
Yeah, but all you can do is make something up. You say, well, this is what I'm hearing. My sources say this. And when it does eventuate, you hear, well, they changed their mind. There's just outcauses everywhere. And you can dribble any shit. And they do.
I remember Callum Wilson was talking about the swap of when Buckley was coaching Collingwood and we were struggling. Him swapping with Scott at North. And she kept pushing that story. And then when it didn't eventuate, Collingwood back Buckley. She goes, well, it wasn't a good fit. It's like, it was never considered the fucking fit. We should probably talk about our game.
Yeah, it was okay, wasn't it?
No, let me...
I fell asleep during it. What happened?
Let me look at the leading. So, dropping at Allen. What do you think about that?
I wasn't happy at the time. Now, obviously...
You're never happy.
The thing is, I think with Allen is you've tagged him to be someone that you plan to invest in. You see him as one of your number one young assets. to get one game, and I don't think he performed particularly badly. Probably defensively could have done a few things better, but this is part of the learning curve.
Can I just remember what you're about to say? I just want to qualify that. The loss against GWS, most of them were fucked. So to single out one player...
I was probably going to get to that, but thanks for stealing that particular bit of thunder.
Well, that's what my sources told me.
You're either right or wrong on that one.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a good fit.
I don't think he did anything that deserved to be dropped. So I'm not sure. Did they come out and explain? There was something, I did read something about Fly, mention him in a presser. He clearly likes him.
I think what he said was, Ed Allen's a work in progress. He'll get better. He'll improve. That's not the finished product.
Apparently, he said that there was going to be a straight swap between him and a North Melbourne player.
Given Pendlebury played as a sub, it would seem to me with the 6-day breaks, they're just, I'm guessing here, but they would be really mindful of whatever the loads are, whatever they determine that they're going to be, and they just said, you know what, we'll drop him, bring in Lachie Sullivan to be like the interim fill-in, and then we'll rotate him back out next week or whenever it is.
The thing is, like, I don't mind Lachie Sullivan, but you're going to know what you're going to get. He's never going to win a game off his boot or do anything extraordinary. He's just a good, honest worker. Yeah, if that was the role that you wanted him to play, then you can understand the decision. Well, I would have thought investing game time into Ed Allen would be the priority at the moment, because you want to fast track a guy like that. He's a big bullocking beast. He really should be a big clearance player. Why not make that happen sooner rather than later?
Yeah, again, I don't know if it's just sort of their timing, how much game time he's getting, or measuring how much game time he's getting. So maybe, after this week he gets a run of 3 games or whatever. I mean, the interesting thing is now, if you look at the side, you have a 15-goal win. You have the goalie to come back. Mitchell, I don't think, will come back anytime soon.
To Australia.
Yeah, but it's Lachie Sullivan would seem the first out, and then Ned Long would seem just on seniority to be another out. I don't know if they'll bring Hoskin Elliott straight in either.
No, I think they said that he's a couple of weeks away.
But I mean, in terms of when he's available, does he come straight back in? Is he still a starting 18 player? Is he still a first 23 player? I
think a player like Hoskin Elliott, you're going to have someone go past him pretty quick.
I think they already went past him pretty quick.
They wouldn't know because he can't see him.
But that's it. I think they got the chemistry of a lot of the side right on... when did we play? Friday night? Saturday night?
Saturday night, yeah.
I can't remember. But they got the chemistry of the side right. It felt like the mids... Nick was getting tagged pretty heavily, but then they got some really good input from guys like Side Bottom. I've always been a fan of Long. I thought he did really, really well as a big body around it, which helped others sort of play more on the outside. Nick came into the game more and more as it went on, but he wasn't, destructive, Nick. And you got sort of some good... I don't want to say cameos because they still got like about 20 possessions and that. Like I was surprised when I looked up Lipinski. He actually had a pretty good return. So
yeah, look, I think with the Nick thing, the good thing I thought that came out of that, it was frustrating that he was getting tagged and he was clearly frustrated too. But it didn't stop the scoring. That everything else picked up and compensated for him, which you want to see that, because I think we've commented before, you've pointed out before that they can be too reliant on Nick to get things going. And I think, you're going to have occurrences like this where he's going to be quiet and everyone else has to look at each other and say, well, it's our turn to shine.
Do you think McRae should, like in those sort of situations, do you think McRae should actually take some sort of action to get Nick away from the tag, like start him at half forward and get him to run?
Well, he was moved to the wing, I saw him one.
That was pretty interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, just to take him away from the tag. And that's what you want to see.
But I mean, that didn't happen until a lot later.
No, I think part of his learning curve too is you've got to know how to shake a tag, because it's a tactic that's always going to get used on him. As long as he shows weaknesses towards it, which at the moment he is, he does get curtailed from time. That you're going to have to put him into that pressure cooker moment to help him learn how to shake one. But I think when it gets too long, you can't just persist the whole game with it. You've got to try something left of field to get him away.
Yeah, the one thing I'd be looking at though, because he's not a 4th-year player, is he's still pretty light frame. So when you're putting these sort of thugs on him as taggers who are just, out bustling him and that, the coach should be mindful of, like, he's as good as he's still a really, really young player.
Yeah.
So maybe give him a bit of protection.
It goes back to that you really do need an inside mid running with him that's an enforcer as well.
Yeah.
Someone that tags the tag, if you know what I mean.
Houston.
How fucking good. I mean, the silly thing is like, I mean, I've never really taken that much interest in Port Adelaide games to sit down and watch and go, well, apart from, you know, your gun midfielders, who else did you really have that really stood out? Just really, you know, you knew of him, but you really didn't know how good he was until you get to see him, you know, in your colours. And I was shocked at just how effective he was. Clean user of the ball, you know, just aggressive, just everything that you wanted out of a clearance.
A lot of composure too. A lot of times in traffic, instead of just sort of blazing away or taking like even the first option, he sort of went, no, I'll go this way or go that way. I mean, he got caught once, he got ping fouled the ball, which I thought was a really stupid decision early on. But it's the sort of thing like you look at this guy and it's like even in the pace of the game, he was still very calm to try and find a better option. And putting him back there, I think it helped guys like Quaynor and then Josh Daicos get more into it too. I mean, Josh, I thought, started quiet and then slowly came into it. In terms of, the defence, I mean, it was nice to see Darcy Moore actually start to go for a couple of marks as the game wore on.
Yeah, he intercepted quite a bit.
Yeah.
Have you got the numbers?
Oh, you're making me look it up.
No one's got that long to wait.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, Siri.
Yeah. But at the start, he's still doing his double-fisted pump. I mean, the one disappointing, he did a double-fist punch on half forward. It's like, that's where you take the risk and try and mark it there at half forward. But I thought, as it went on, and again, it's really hard to judge because we dominated them so extremely that it was hard to find a bad player. Or you couldn't find a bad player.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those games where at the end of it, you want to do your best three, and you go, well, geez, could be quite a few, and then you're thinking about, well, who actually was the passenger this week? And you think, everybody contributed. Yeah. So one of those rare games where just everything clicked.
And it was good too that in terms of like I thought Ruth McInnes started to show some really good signs. Yeah, that really good contest in the wing where he seemed out of it, but then he laid a tackle and got a hold of the ball. And then later on in the game, he actually started to provide some counter-attack, which was like, okay, that's what you want to see. I'm sure he's not meant to be just a dour defender. So that was actually impressive.
Yeah, there was a moment like he conceded a goal in the first quarter, and he was just turned inside out with someone.
Riley.
Yeah, that was him. He got beaten. The only thing he got beaten there was with experience, and they're great learning moments. He's only been a defender now for what, 1 game, 2 games.
Yeah. The interesting thing there is why has he ended up on Rioli? I mean, that doesn't seem a proper match-up anyway. So
I don't know.
I mean, he's probably fallen back to cover for someone, which is the way they do.
Yeah.
But like when Rioli beat him, I wasn't overly upset. I mean, it was like, okay, shit, they got a goal. But what's Rioli, about 5'7" or something, fast, and Reef's about 6'3" or something. I don't know the exact height. But it's basically playing a small on the tall, and the smalls turn the tall inside out. It's like, oh, what a shock that happened. Who saw that coming?
Oh, that's the thing. He said he took the journalistic approach. He goes, well, I was going to run this way, and he ran the other way. I was either going to be right or wrong.
Yeah.
And if anyone ever brings it up in the future, I'll say, well, things changed.
Schultz watch.
Yes. I think it was all right.
Oh, it was pretty good.
All right, should we move on?
Pretty good.
No, he plays more games like that than absolutely fantastic. There's a couple of things that, and I'm not singling out anything, but, like he'd make an error, but his second effort was immediate. He'd rebound straight back in and try and impact the contest, and that's what you want with every player.
Well, the thing that impressed me most was that soccer goal when the ball came off hands in the goal square and he just ran in and, pretty much half volleyed it. It's like, this is what I want to see small forwards do, is create those opportunistic goals. He had that really good tackle where Maynard played on and kicked the goal and took the advantage. So he was, I mean, if he plays like that, or, that's his standard, then I'd be happy. But again, it's one of these games where everyone's really good. Membry was really, frightening at the start. And I think when you get a forward who plays like that really early in the game, it makes the opposition defence panic a little bit because now it's like, we've all got to be mindful of this guy.
Yeah.
You've got to provide a chop out, and then in doing that, it's starting to free up other guys.
Everything really sort of, like in the forward line, it functions superbly like it did against Richmond. I think when the defensive options are low and there's just nothing coming from the other side, it's easy for a unit like that to really look effective. So what did Membry end up with? 4. McStay 3 and Miacek, I think, kicked 3.
Yep. Elliott 2, Hill 2, and Schultz 1.
If they do that every week, we can just take the flag now, can't we?
Oh yeah, you'd take that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd take it. But look, I really like the forward line that we're building. If it fires like that every week, absolutely fantastic.
Because I thought McStay was really good. I thought he was really, really good. Can you see a role for Cox?
No, because someone's going to have to make way.
I mean, the thing with Membry, that forward line as it is with Membry, McStay and Miacek as the talls, they provide a lot more mobility than Cox is capable of doing. And I thought McStay actually rucked really well also.
No, he's good.
So that was the flip side of it. I mean, generally you're going to get more out of Cox as the ruckman than, whoever the part-time ruckman is.
Yeah, look, unless injuries or you just rotating someone in and out, I don't see Cox getting too many games this year. He's played this weekend, in that VFL practice game where Ash Johnson broke his ankle, fractured his...
Why would Ash Johnson break Mason Cox's ankle?
Well, because he owes him money. You know what these Americans are like. But that's his first, obviously, run back from whatever was ailing him. I think they'll give him a couple more weeks run in there, and they may consider bringing him in for a game or two. But he'd have to be, it's obviously going to probably be his last year. He'd have to be on limited games this year.
Yeah. I think
he's not part of the future.
I think there's a handful there where you'd think, because of the age profile of the list, they've got to start forcing some turnover. And again, that's going to rely on whatever's coming up. I mean, the thing of Membry, you bring in Membry in and he's, 30 or something himself? So it's not like we're really bringing the next generation.
But you're going to get a couple more years out of Membry with any luck. So you got, 8 players over the age of 30? Did I hear that stat during the game? Can you check it up on the iPad? You brought the iPad to confirm stats. Do you know how to turn it on? Just crank that thing on the side. Yeah, you don't have to. It's not going to do anything. Do you want me to fill in airtime?
Yeah, fill in airtime.
What were we talking about? I can't remember. Membry?
Yeah.
8 players over the age of 30. Well, let's name them. Scott Pendlebury, Steele Sidebottom. No, so you're going to have a few of these guys managed. I don't think everyone's going to be a sub each week or anything like that. Some of them have to not necessarily go back to the VFL for a run, but they're going to take a week off every now and then. Yeah. And I think you're going to have a number of players that are put in little glass cases and they're going to have break in case of emergency, and Coxie, I reckon, will be one of those.
One thing that, watching it, how many players from opposition clubs do you think we have in that side?
Pretty much all of them now.
How many would you guess? Is that a number?
About between 10, 15?
We had 10 in that side, and then you had Mitchell out. I was actually surprised. It was pretty much half the side was coming from opposition sides.
And it's funny that all those opposition sides probably could have used players like that this week. Yeah.
So, you had Mitchell and Hoskinelli out, so that's 2 more. But we counted 10. I don't know. I mean, did Lucky Sullivan ever play for Bulldogs Seniors? I don't think he did.
No.
But yeah, it was it was actually interesting. It was because that's not really the model that's being profiled in terms of redeveloping lists. It's go to the draft and rebuild. The club has this mandate now of going out and getting experienced bodies. I want players, not picks. McRae famously said, we know that's not primarily or exclusively being driven by him. It's actually coming from the whole club. That's their attitude, is we want to stay competitive.
Even Doris, the lunch lady, said that.
She shouted it. But I'm just saying, it's actually interesting, because do you think that's actually something that is going to give you ultimate success long term?
Oh, look, I think it's with the Tasmanian team coming in, you're going to have compromised drafts. I think we're padding around that to a certain extent. And you seem to be getting some value from discards as well. these days. So I think players that wouldn't necessarily perform at some of the other clubs can come into our system. I think that's clearly what they believe is the case. They can get them to be performers inside of what they're building behind the scenes, or the way that they structure things, run things, kids run around, all that stuff. Happy workers are happy, whatever the saying is. Is there a saying like that, or just make it up?
Just made it up.
Happy workers are happy wankers. Is that it?
I think happy wankers would be happy workers.
No, I think that you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Yeah, just...
A bird in the hand.
Maury is just against all the clubs that are building, which have just pillaged the draft and are continuing to pillage the draft. When they come up, do you have the quality to match against them? And that's like my concern. It is obviously Geelong's the prototype of this. Keep topping up, keep topping up, keep topping up. But I've always sort of said is you can't count the 7, 9, 11 flags because that was built on... They went to the draft, they got their, Bartels and Corey's and all these sort of guys, and they picked up Ablett and Scarlett as father's sons. So they built that side from the draft, and then they got a couple of guys like Oddens in to finish it off. But then through the 2010s, they were recycling players, and they were always up there, but they never really looked like they were going to win one. The teams that did win them were Richmond and Hawthorn, two sides that actually went to the draft and built from that and then topped up at the end.
It has to be an amalgam, but you're seeing sides, the Frankenstein monster sides of recent times, is that they're not... You're getting a lot of talent in there. Part of that is you're going to trade some of it away to get picks in, to get talent. It's not picks, sorry, to get senior able good players in to balance your list out. That you're going to give something away to get it. But none of those sides, like Gold Coast, has yet to play in a final, let alone taste anything success-wise. GWS they've made a grand final. They've made a few prelims, but they haven't really threatened anyone.
Well, it's interesting though. I mean, I think the one thing in GWS is always harder for the interstate sides because of the travel factor, particularly in the young and inexperienced sides. You look at someone like Port Adelaide as an example, they've sort of gone out, like, they're talking about their outs, and that Butters is a gun, but they're talking about guys like Zerk Thatcher and Radigalia, and it's like, you serious? How much is that going to improve them? And it's the same thing with Geelong. Geelong were recycling and picking up those sort of players. It wasn't until they picked up Dangerfield and Cameron that they really became, scarily good. And that's you bringing in elite players. And I think, you would have watched the other night, Houston, how fucking good was he? It was like, the guy I was watching it with were just saying it's like getting Jimmy Clement back.
Well, and that's it. You've got a known quantity, though,
yeah,
with that guy. And, you can't obviously pull trades off like that all the time. They're very costly these days.
Not you're dealing with Port Adelaide, apparently.
Well, no, it's a packet of crisps we traded for him.
Yeah.
So we didn't stipulate what flavour they were or anything, did we?
I asked that on Twitter.
Was it a big pack, a little pack?
I tweeted all that. Was it a fun pack or was it a party pack? Are you reading our tweets?
What's Twitter?
X.
Oh, the thing formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah. You know?
No. No. Did you post that, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time watching replays on the weekend.
Carlton Richmond, though.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the comedy festival, and then it was Get Down on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. I know the club.
You know the club?
Yeah, I know the club.
Oh, you like intimately?
Yeah, I sit in their boardroom all the time.
Do you know what's called a boardroom?
Yeah. I won't go there. I've totally forgot what I was going to say. No, I know, like, in the early 2000s, and we were picking up a lot of the guys like Wakelin and Clement and all that. The club seemed to develop this idea that they could take players from other clubs and turn them into guns. And I remember, like, when Simon Buckley was at Collingwood, I remember Nick Maxwell said the only thing standing between Simon Buckley and an all-Australian Guernsey is Simon Buckley. Like, he had to realise it for himself. And you saw in the 2010s when Buckley was coaching, they were bringing in a lot of these guys and trying to turn them into world beaters, and they just didn't work. And it's like, I think they have to have some talent. It's like Paul Medhurst was sort of steak knives, and he became this all-Australian small forward in 2008, but he was a very fucking talented footballer. So he had a lot to work with there. So I'm a bit worried that, I hope the club don't buy into a false economy that just because they're ending up in finals means they could have won one. So, I mean, obviously it's yet to be seen. We might go win the next 6. But in 10 years' time, if we're just sort of popping up in prelims and other finals and they're going, we're close, but never actually good enough to win one.
And in that case, you're more or less following the Geelong model to a T.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Look, I mean, in a perfect world, you build something that's going to contest for 3 or 4 years and win 3 flags. But, it's almost like now with the dilution of stuff, the winning one would be great, and your window opens up from that point of winning that you maybe have 1 or 2 more grabs at it. Yeah. But then the thing is, you're stuck then in that cycle of you're going to be looking to rehash other players rather than build something from scratch. Richmond pretty much got thrown into the deep end with it, and they had a very good performance the other night. But that's just one game.
Yeah, but what they're doing is for long-term gains, not. That was just a bonus.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is you can't include that as an example of this is the successful route.
But the thing is, the AFL implemented the draft and the salary cap to try and equalise the competition. And it hasn't done that at all. It's actually just furthered the divide, because if you count probably 2000 as the start of when clubs are really starting to take the draft seriously, and the salary cap was actually implemented when they penalised Carlton in 201 or 202. Hawthorn's got 4 flags, Brisbane's got 4 flags, Richmond's got 3. Did I say Geelong? Geelong's got the 4. Mm-hmm. We've got 2. Sydney's got 2. West Coast has got 2. So 20 flags are shared between that 6-7 clubs, and other clubs haven't gotten anywhere near it. So what the AFL did, I actually think, is they actually made the divide worse, because in the past, if you were shit, you'd go out and buy players and top up, and then you just, you could bounce back within the season. Nowadays, if you're shit, your only choice is to start with the foundation of a draft, and get improve enough that you can then start topping up. But that's still like a 5-6 year plan, or if you're North Melbourne, a 19 or 20 year plan. So what you have ultimately is you have a couple teams at the top who are good enough to win it. You have about 8 fillers who aren't good enough to win it and just making up the numbers. And then you have about 8 teams who are just nowhere near it. And generally in most seasons, you'll get that one team who's just miles ahead of everyone else. Except when we decide to make it up there, we tend to make it up there with teams who are equally as good as us. But it just doesn't seem like their intent to equalise the competition has done anything more than just create a greater divide in the competition between the best and the worst, and the haves and the have-nots and all that sort of stuff.
No, I mean, you even see it. It almost feels like it's an inequality. Is that the right word for describing a season where 2 grand finalists meet and one of them clearly just doesn't turn up, and that's happened a fair bit.
Yeah.
Of late times, you're thinking, well, it just sort of makes a mockery of the season. It's not like you would expect 2 of your best combatants to make a grand final, make a spectacle of it, like we did against Brisbane. That was a great game to watch. Following year, not so much. Year before, not so much.
I'll tell you what really pisses me off.
Everything?
Yes. I'm a wog. This is what we do. But you have the AFL create this ridiculous round 0. Given you create round 0, would you not prioritise that clubs like Collingwood then get a 7-day break?
Straight into 6.
Straight into 6. It's not like, you had to juggle all this other shit around it. That just seems ridiculous and really poor management from the AFL.
Well, it's like, was it the same thing last year? We played about 3 games in 13 days or something like that. Well, that's a great start to your fucking competition. I mean, obviously they couldn't predict last week there was going to be a cyclone that derailed it. But even having that split round, I think the best thing is this weekend felt like the start of football.
Yeah.
You had all games being played. You had something to watch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was back to normality. Not this fucking fractured round 0 crap. But apparently the AFL is going to stick to their guns because...
Well, the other thing to order for...
Because they're never wrong. Did you know that? Then, unlike the journalistic fraternity, the AFL's never wrong.
I would have thought if you have these clubs in round 0, what is it, like meant to be 8 clubs? There was only the 4 because of the cyclone. That didn't happen. But surely you'd go, you know what? Let's juggle those teams so they all play each other in round 1. So all the teams who've got a game behind them are playing each other, and all the teams who don't have a game behind them might come in cold. They're playing each other. Instead of sort of doing what you have, it's like the one thing I thought playing Port Adelaide is like it's going to be their first hit out for the season. They're coming into state. Wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit cold. And Hinkley did imply that in his press conference, which I don't blame him. And he said Collingwood played like a side that had played last week and now had a point to prove, and they did exactly that.
And that's the thing is look, as good as that performance was on Saturday night, and look, I called it. I think it was pretty much in terms of answering what happened the previous week. It's as bad as complete a performance as you could hope for. It was footy porn at the end of the day. But the thing is, you just still don't get a gauge for how good your opposition actually is. No. And you think, well, what does that say about your performance? Was it outstanding, or was it you just did exactly what you had to do because you beat up on a weaker kid? The same way that we ran over Richmond, though clearly they've proved that Carlton are even funnier now because there's a team worse than Richmond, and we made them look fifth rate. The same way that we made Port look fifth rate. I don't think we're going to come up against the Dogs next week and have, I think they've still got a lot of injury outs, but they fought and won against North today. Not every side's going to roll over. I think round one does tend to throw up some of these strange results, and teams are a little bit underdone in terms of, not so much preparation, but actual game time. We've had a game under our belt. No one cramped this week. We ran out the game perfectly. Yeah, we're playing in, 34 degrees. My wife and my son was there on Saturday night, and they said it was like a bloody sauna at the ground. Clearly they're feeling it, the players are feeling it. Yet we collapsed the week before in Sydney when it was 27. But apparently they did say it was a different kind of heat.
Well, I was speaking to a friend who's been there regularly, and he just says their 30's like a 40 for us. It's just a lot, the density and the humidity and all that sort of stuff. It is what it is. You get this sort of competition now where you do get these big smashings every now and again. Go back up these years ago again, we smashed GWS by 12 goals at the MCG or whatever it was. Does that mean GWS are old and slow? No, it just meant that was that sort of day.
Exactly. Look, and the thing is, I texted the group at the end of the first quarter, and I said that Port's defenders, to me, they looked like they were very, very much looking like they were getting close to being dead on their feet. Yeah, you saw them at the after the goals, and they were resetting. They're all hunched over. Sweat was absolutely pouring off of them. This is their first realistic game hit out, and you're playing at an impressive temperature. You would think that the same way as that we were impacted last week, it impacted them. Although they perked up in the last 10 minutes, I think, and had a bit of a run, but the sting's out of the game at that stage, and we did counter a little bit because we made the comment to each other that I think at the start of the fourth quarter, that what I don't want to see for the rest of this game is us take the foot off the throat.
I said that repeatedly. Yeah. It's like I did when we were like 8-9 goals, obviously, but not turn into a 4-goal win. And then I kept saying, I hope it doesn't turn into like 6-goal less than we are now. I think the one, I don't want to say it's disappointing, but you had like Ned Long go for sort of that banana kick, and then McStay went for the miracle goal. So they sort of lost a little bit of discipline there at the end, and they started doing party tricks. And I don't know if anyone spoke to anyone there, but it felt a little bit, that's when Port got a little bit into the game where we were just playing a little bit more extravagantly, but we did seem to clamp down on it again. But in the end, it's really hard to judge. I think we're a top 4 side, unless a lot of players drop off suddenly and all that. And I actually liked that they played Pendlebury as a sub. I thought, because I know there was people going, what the fuck's he doing playing Pendlebury as sub? But I thought that was a proactive move, and he doesn't often make the really proactive moves.
No, and it was clearly it's part of that strategy for managing the older players. I don't think you want to show your hand every week and make, it's a guarantee that you're over 30 as a sub, because what they call it now, it's the tactical sub. It's not a medical sub or anything like that. But yeah, look, I think it's going to have to be some players that you want to ease into games or give them some game time, and some of it's going to be about managing the old boys, and that's just fair enough. But I think some of the managing the old boys, you might be better served by bringing someone else in to cover a full game and send that player off for a rest. Yeah, rather than give them
the big problem,
half a game or a quarter of a game.
The big problem there is it's still, who do you bring in? It's either in this case, Ad Allen's the only one, the alternative. It's who else do you bring in?
Well, it goes back to the same argument. Probably some of the discussions we had back in 23 before we realised how brilliant everything was. Is you can't play the same old blokes week in, week out. what's your aim? Because part of your job moving forward is also developing and getting games into the next tier. What have we got? Did you check it on the iPad? 8 blokes over the age of 30. You know what an iPad is? It's like a big iPhone.
Oh, it's a sale at pennies.
I can't believe people actually do that to each other with that type of implement. So you've got to have to it's like a two-way attack. You want to keep that list playing consistently good football and keep them cohesive. At the same time, you got to get games into the next tier, because those 8 blokes over 30 are only got maybe a year or two left into them, and you can't then just say, well, fuck, we're going to bring in player X, Y, and Z from somewhere else in a similar age bracket. You'd be sort of looking at that next tier of up-and-comers and saying, well, now you're slotting into more consistent game time, I would have thought. Now, clearly, we'll do it in a smaller capacity, but we're not desperate, but you're going to have to do some of that.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't mind when the goalie's ready, if they play him as sub. And just, the one thing we're sort of joking about is that you're playing Pendlebury as sub. Imagine you have an injury in the first 5 minutes. So, he gets to play the whole game. Are you surprised by what I've seen as a bit of criticism of McRae and questioning whether he has any tricks other than what he's offered? I had a pretty long conversation with a friend who's a Richmond supporter, and he just said, he's going to leave the club in a hole. He's recruiting all these old players, and then he'll leave, and then it'll just be that. I've seen a few other people question, does he have anything more? Does he need a tactician? I mean, we know Lepic provided a lot of strategic input in 2023, but in 2024, Lepic was moved to cover for the Graham Wright absence, and now Lepic is out of that coaching structure. Do you think... Are you surprised by the criticism of McRae? Do you think it's valid, or do you think...
I think that you'd have to have a realistic concern about that. And while you're talking about that, all I could think about was Clarkson. Clarkson's inherited an up-and-coming good list at Hawthorn, went through a whole top-up process year after year, won a number of flags, and when it came time to rebuilding, he sort of didn't appear to be the absolute superstar coach. Now he's gone to North. How many years has he been there now?
I remember he missed half a year.
Yeah, they're still not looking like... You've got all this talent there, but nothing's gelling. So maybe some coaches are naturally good at working with what they've got and working at a constant competitive grab for a premiership, and not so great at the development side of things. And development is clearly they're good at the way that they embrace people and bring them in, and they often talk about the way the culture of the club's changed, and it's approachable and all that sort of stuff, and that can help generate interest and all that sort of thing in terms of being better. But it's not going to make you a better footballer unless you get out there and you're playing.
Yeah, I think the one thing with Clarkson, though, is when he went to Hawthorn, he cleaned out the list. Because I can't remember if you told him, if I'm making this up, but it was like
just pretend you're a journalist.
Yeah, 8 from, we can make up the numbers, but we're not going to win it. And they cleared out the list. They got rid of Nathan Thompson and Hay, and there's all these players I can't remember, Mark Graham and all that sort of stuff. And then they went to the draft, and that's where they picked up Hodge and Buddy and Roughhead and Lewis and all this sort of... I think they became a victim of their own success, because after they three-peated, it was like, let's just try and top up. We're pretty close. We can stay close. And then they were bringing in guys to replace people like Mitchell and Hodge. They were bringing in guys like Tom Mitchell and Jager O'Meara and Ty Vickery and all that. And it was like...
Ty Vickery.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it. It was like... And he didn't really embark on the rebuild. It was this sort of thing of, let's try and stay within reach. But the more they tried to stay within reach, the more they brought in players from outside, the greater the gulf became. Yeah. Whereas I think probably after... Because I think for 2 years in a row, they went out in straight sets. And I think at that stage, they probably should have just said, we're not going to win it with this list. Now it's time to reset. But instead, they kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Mm. What do you think of Hawthorn, by the way? Because they're looking good. They smashed Essendon, but that's probably not that difficult.
That's the thing. They really haven't beaten anyone that...
Sydney, the grand finalists.
Oh, fuck. The thing is with Sydney is you don't lose a grand final in that fashion and come out and be competitive next year. They're going to jump off a cliff. Like the same way St Kilda did, like we've done when you lose them. I think they emotionally scar you, those really bad grand final losses. I don't think it's possible for them with their list to atone. Time will prove me right or wrong, like a journalist. but they've lost now 2 games. Sydney, I think the rot's starting to set in. So look, I think Hawthorn were far better side than clearly the Swans were. I don't think their performance was that. Who they play the other Thursday night? Essendon.
Yeah.
I don't think their performance was that great. There's a couple of times Essendon got back within a kick or two and couldn't overhaul. Let's see. I think the thing is that the media is hyping them and internally they clearly are running on a bit of youthful exuberance and confidence, but they haven't really. They won one final, didn't they, last year?
Yeah, they won that first one. I can't remember who they played. They won the
that's
first
it.
one, and they lost that close one to Port, and that was when Hinkley, did a little playing thing to Ginnivan.
Yeah, you can't hang your hat on that and say that they've arrived.
Why would you hang your hat on Ginnivan?
Oh, well, because he's got a funny shaped head.
Some messages, feedback. Great pod, boys. Welcome back from Sergio Montoro.
He sounds like a wrestler.
Sounds like a Bond villain. Awesome to see you guys back. I thought you quit. My favourite Collingwood podcast. You tell it like it is. Love it. Go Pies.
Is that from my mum?
Yes.
Oh.
We lacked composure, particularly in front of goal. Once the Giants got a sizable lead, playing to catch up with the footy was too much for us. And Pies should try rotating McCreary, Lipinski and Hill in the middle to add to the speed. And Sony and Pendles should be the sub together.
What do you think of Lipinski's game?
It was actually interesting because at halftime we're looking at the stats. And I thought, I haven't really cited him. And I was like, oh, holy shit, he's got like 18 stats. But it was funny, like I was reading out his stats. I was following the stats of a lot of the players.
Were you using your iPad on the
I did actually.
stats?
I did.
So you would have thought you'd have a bit of a routine to quickly go to the stats.
Yeah. But it was funny because it was like, oh, he's got 10 kicks and 8 handballs and 0 tackles. And he tackled someone, I think it was in the third quarter. He's got his tackle.
Did a flash and alert pop up? Was it a notification that he got a tackle?
No, it was just to see him in any physicality. I mean, I think they're the sort of games that suit him though, because if he comes to link up man, runs on the wing and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, if you gave me a choice of him and Treloar, I'd still be going for Treloar. He's a good.
Yeah, there are some who think he wouldn't be getting a game with us if he was still with us.
Fucking hell. Hey guys, I was at the. Sorry. Hey guys, I was at the game. The Pies looked slow and they could not handle a 29-degree heat. Plus, it was very humid on the day.
Was that from Nick Daicos?
No, there's a little bit of byplay about who we should have in the midfield. The old Collingwood blueprint, alive and well under Fly. The goalless quarter. How many is that now under Fly? Fly won't win you many games.
Well, he proved you wrong this week. Whoever you are, masked man. That's only a week though.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Slow ball movement, insipid tackling, lack of an apparent game plan, especially entry into the forward line. Well, they addressed a lot of that. So it's whether they can keep doing that. I mean, this is the one question they had with that game plan that does rely on frenetic pressure.
Yeah, you're in that yin and yang moment at the moment. You've had one really poor performance and you've had one exceptionally good performance. It still doesn't tell you where we're at. It's obviously very early in the season. It'd be silly to think that, we're here, we're there, or whatever. But you've got to see some consistency of doing this over the next couple of weeks. Well, who we got? We got...
we'll get to that in a minute. So the one other thing I found interesting is the amount of times like they either just socketed it off the ground trying to move it forward, or just... There was that big kick out from Howe to Maynard at centre-half back, where Maynard had to run onto it and he did the tap.
Tap on, yeah.
Yeah.
That was good. And
it was like they were really mindful of just keep the ball moving, keep it in motion. But the thing is, does that always work? It's I don't know. It's interesting in terms of the chemistry of whether the chemistry of the football side can keep clicking long term. Not long term, but consistently to be meaningful.
It clearly, and I think there was comments made during the game that it was dewy and humidity and the ball was slippery. And you tend to see that. It's like with the football that they started playing a little bit of that with the soccering and just keeping the ball moving forward at all costs.
Yeah, I think the other thing though too is just don't get... I mean, I hope that they're really, really mindful of the fact that the one thing they really lack is that really big inside mid extractor, or that guy like Mitchell is going to dive on the ball and save it. So don't get caught in that situation too much. I mean, they actually beat us for clearances and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it was just, and probably they pipped us in the end when, we sort of took the foot off the pedal a little bit. But it just felt like it was like, keep it in motion, keep it in motion, keep it in motion. But we can't do anything about too old because they are a pretty old side. But in terms of the speed of them, they look like a quick side. And the thing is, you're always going to look slow when you're chasing. Port looks slow, so are they an issue? And it's interesting too, because like I was looking at the stats later on, guys like Rosie, they had statistically really good returns. They just didn't have much impact on the game. No. Now we can talk about the rest of the fixture for the next 19 weeks.
So what is it?
We're just playing Bulldogs on Friday night.
Yep. Diminished Bulldogs.
Yeah. I might look up all of them. I don't know.
I know we've got Carlton coming up.
Yeah, I think that's in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So they're all winnable games.
Yeah. Oh, well, we had allegedly the tough draw. And everyone was worried about that. Don't blame me for the AFLs. Alright, so Bulldogs, and then we have Carlton on the Thursday night, the traditional Thursday night. And then we have Sydney on the Friday night. And then we have the Lions on the Thursday night over there.
Yeah, I think that should be the first, realistically, be the first challenging game. Because I think, look, the reality probably is GWS will be a top 4 contender. The rest of these guys, you just really don't know where they're going to be.
Yeah, Carlton plays Hawthorn this week, so you'd assume Hawthorn should win that. So, does that put Carlton in a little bit of defensive place? Are they composed enough to come out of it? I mean, they play the Hawks, Carlton. See, now the iPad's coming in use. Play the Bulldogs.
You should think about turning it on.
Yeah, they play the Bulldogs, and then they play us. They could, be 0-4.
Wouldn't that be terrible?
Well, they could be 0-3 when they play us. So it'll be interesting where they're at, because the one good point that the journalists made is there's a lot of coaches this year who would be coaching for their fucking careers. What's the guy at the Crows? What's his name?
Coach.
Yeah.
Nix. Is it Nix?
Yeah, that's it. Matthew Nix. Yeah. So his job would be under threat. Voss's job has to be under threat. I know they've re-signed him for 2 years, but that Brad Scott, that Longmuir at Fremantle, his job would be under threat. Chris Scott at Geelong would not be under threat, but you'd be thinking if someone made him an offer, he might jump.
Well, someone's got to go to Tasmania. Is it next year?
Yeah.
Did they start? They'd be starting next year, yeah.
Melbourne, Goodwin's position would be under threat. North Melbourne, I think if they had a really shit year, they might start looking at Clarkson and go, maybe you're not the guy.
Yeah, it'd be an expensive divorce, though, I think, that one. So
St Kilda, Grant Thomas, Ross Lyon, Grant Thomas.
Well, the thing is, you got prior experience at sacking him there. That'd be an easy one to get out of.
Yeah,
Ross, you know the drill.
And Bulldogs, Beveridge, his position will be under threat if they had a really shit year too. So there's actually quite a few coaches under pressure, and you think they would feel it. If it starts going pear-shaped for a few of them, you'd think they might just tighten up. So what about this game against Dogs? I mean, they have a lot of injury problems. Bont usually gets about 98 touches against us.
Bont likes to kill us.
Yeah.
Trelaw, I think we can cover this game. I don't want to sound too confident, and it's not a question of I think we're stupendously better than them or anything like that. I just think that we are stupendously better than them.
I think if you want to win a flag, and you want to consider us a top 4 threat, we should be beating them relatively comfortably.
Where are we playing? We're not playing it. Are we playing at Telstra Dome?
No, it's at the MCG.
At the MCG? We're going to play Footscray at the MCG?
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Didn't we lose...
Is that the moon?
It is the moon. Didn't we lose member seats at the G?
I don't know.
I don't know. Should do some research. So, as I said, it's at Wurundjeri.
What's that?
It's at MCG.
We should be a chance there then. We like playing the Joe. No, I think we can. Their losses are going to be just too hard for them to. If we take the form that we played this week into that game, we'll do it comfortably. It's just too many holes in their side at the moment to cover.
I think even if they had a full side, we should beat them. I don't know. I mean, media talks about what a list they have, and it's like I don't see it. What's the list? This is you got patchwork. I mean, not to say we don't have patchwork players, but you have Rory Robertson half back, and you've never made Norton and Jamara Ugle-Hagan work. I know he's not in the side at the moment, but it just sort of seems like on paper it might look good, but it hasn't really ever gelled.
Yeah. I mean, the ones who regularly jump up in stitches won't be playing, so it's hard to see if they're going to have anyone else that's going to do a bit of a number on us.
Like Simon Beasley.
No, I like him.
Yeah. What's your tip for the game?
Collingwood by 1 point.
That's a big win.
It's a win's a win.
I'll say Collingwood by 34 points.
Oh, between the two of us, that's a 70-point victory.
Yep. Any final thoughts?
No, I don't have any final thoughts.
Do you have any thoughts?
No, not often.
All right, subscribe, like, comment. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
And if you need a job and know how to use an iPad, leave a message.
Yep. Later.
Bye. It's like Maynard.